Who knew that pastors could actually be cool? Not me, that's for sure. Today, with a little help from a creator friend, we're learning about Jeff Durbin, who actually appeared in a video of mine a couple of weeks ago. He seems like a nice guy that unfortunately says some dumb things about atheist morality. Let's explore that. Hello, I'm the Skeptic, the British floating circle that watches people make extraordinary claims, and then I explain why I don't accept what they're saying in the hope that some folks who also don't believe get some reassurance that they're not alone in their non-belief. Since I'm going on stupid vacation to have stupid fun with my amazing family, I've hired in help in the form of Professor Plink to let us know why this fella says some silly things about the morality of atheists. But before we find out why atheists shouldn't care whether we eat babies or whatever, if this isn't your first Skeptic video, hit the like, the subscribe and the bell to get more videos like this in your feed. And a super thanks to those that hit super thanks in some recent videos. Balan Philotico, Dwayne Young and Will. Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe bestows leaves upon you all. More hen. So whilst I enjoy a bit of R&R before a tiny hybrid floating circle enters the universe, it's all over to you, Plink.
Hello everyone, I'm Professor Plink. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. I want to start off sending a thanks out to Skeptic for letting me have the driver's seat on his channel this week while he's away. So today we're going to be taking a look at a guy named Jeff Durbin. If you're unfamiliar with Jeff, he's a pastor and elder at Apologia Church in Tempe, Arizona. He also features prominently in their videos and films that they make in-house through their Apologia studios, and appears regularly as a guest commentator on various Christian programs. And put down your drink if you want to avoid doing a spit take, but prior to apologetics and evangelizing, he was an actor and stuntman who has portrayed Michelangelo and Donatello from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as well as Johnny Cage from Mortal Kombat. Do you think he repents daily for partaking in such blasphemy? I mean, mutated reptiles can't possibly have souls under Christianity, and he played a character who hung out with the god of thunder and lightning. That's got to be violating that commandment about having no other gods before Yahweh, right? But anyway, Jeff has left those sinful ways behind, and he's here today to tell us about the dismal morality of atheists. So take it away, Jeff.
So the atheist has very limited options. The atheist has limited options available. So the atheist has his foundations. He believes that he's come from, and I borrowed this from Dr. Sarfati, fish to philosopher, from the goo to you, right? I absolutely love that he says that. So I took that from him. You're welcome.
First problem is, of course, the common conflating of atheism with evolution. The two things are not synonymous. There's nothing inherent in atheism that demands one must adhere to the idea of evolution. Atheists could believe in any number of ideas about how we got here. They need not go by the notion of evolving from fish to philosopher, or from the goo to you, as you say. An atheist could believe we were engineered by a highly intelligent alien race and placed here. An atheist could believe we're all NPCs in a highly advanced computer system and are effectively just a sequence of ones and zeros programmed to think that we're biological organisms. All that is required to be an atheist is not believing in any god or gods. When will apologists understand this? But beyond that, it's increasingly foolish to try to argue against atheism from a position of dumping on evolution, as most Christians accept the reality of evolution. Pew Research has found that as little as 18% of U.S. adults believe that humans have always existed in their present form. And while it's true that most of those do come from a religious tradition, even among the various Christian denominations, the numbers are highly in evolution's favor. The most stubbornly opposed to the idea of evolution, that of white evangelical Protestants, of which Jeff is one, still only amounts to a paltry 37% refusing to accept evolution. That means that at least 3 out of 5 of the people in Jeff's congregation that he's speaking to also believe that we went from fish to philosopher, or from the goo to you. But now that we've established that even his own people are probably looking at him sideways on this one, let's let him continue.
That's his view of origins. And so now they have to create a complex ethical system as a bag of biological stuff. And so they have very limited options. So what they're limited to is they can ultimately say, well, I feel like that's wrong. And so here's their ethical system. It's preference. So your preference is you feel like you shouldn't murder another human being or you shouldn't steal from this person. So your preference is, I don't like to do that. But here's the thing. You're not in charge of the guy who does like to kill people, who does like to steal. You're not an authority in his life. Your preference has no power and authority in his life.
This entire line of argumentation seems to misunderstand what ethics are. Ethics are standards of right and wrong that are developed collectively by a group or culture. And they're not purely a matter of one's feelings. They come from a complex tapestry of notions of fairness, societal benefit, rights, responsibilities, and empathic reasoning. And just to shoot your ultimate point in the foot right away, ethics should not be identified with religion either. Especially not the Christian religion, lest it be ethical to sick your pet bear on children for calling you bald, or slaughtering the firstborn sons of a country because you don't like what their leader did. Oh, and by the way, you're an unethical wretch if you're wearing clothing of mixed fabrics, under Christianity. It says that in the Bible. No, ethics are derived from collective understandings of right and wrong. So it really doesn't matter if there are individuals who do like to kill or to steal. The disagreement with ethical standards by the few, or the one, do not undermine the existence of those ethical standards within the society as a whole. I mean, my individual preference may not have any power or authority in the life of the murderer, but the ethics of society as a whole certainly do. And I mean, is this really any different from the religious individual? Isn't it your preference that, say, people not have sex before marriage? But your preference has no power and authority in the life of a person who does not adhere to your religious ideology. So your religious ethical preference doesn't stop people from fornicating. At least the ethics of not stealing or killing are societal ethics and do indeed have authority in the lives of those who would commit them.
So you can't create an ethical system off of mere preferences. People have different preferences. That's why we have jails. Because there are lots of people who prefer certain activities and behaviors over others, and we know where we put those people. They prefer it. They want to do it.
Exactly. That's why we put people in jail, because they go against societal ethics that have been enshrined in law. And those societal ethics, at least in most of the Western world, come from secular systems of ethics, not religious ones. This is why people don't go to jail for eating meat on Fridays during Lent. This is why we don't fine people for eating shellfish. This is why we don't apply the death penalty to adulterers. Secular societal ethics, not religious ones, do have authority and power in the lives of people who are a part of those societies.
Or the atheist can say, well, our ethical system is based upon societal convention. So society determines what is right, what is wrong, what is immoral. So they're limited to society will determine. Okay, so if we grant the unbeliever the presupposition that society determines what is moral, then that means that Hitler wasn't wrong.
Godwin's law is in full effect, I see. What would a discussion of ethics and morality be without somebody bringing up Hitler, after all? But now you're conflating law and government with ethics. Just because Hitler may have been voted into office does not mean that everything he did was agreed with by the entire populace of his country, let alone the rest of the world. I mean, I would imagine that the massive Christian evangelical right that makes up a huge portion of the Don's fan base and supporters had major personal disagreements with him cheating on his wife with a porn star and then paying her hush money out of his campaign coffers. I mean, that's got to go against lots of your Christian ethics, right, Jeff? But you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone in our society who thinks that cheating on one's spouse is ethical behavior, even though it's perfectly legal and allowed for within our society. So the end-all, be-all of ethics is in no way down to what the government does or leaders do and allow for. And you're not going to find anyone on the atheist side who says that it is. This whole idea of government determining ethics is a major straw man.
If you say society determines what is right, what is wrong, and that's the basis for ethics, then that means anybody who fought against slavery in the United States of America was immoral because society had determined it was fine and okay to capture people as slaves and to enslave them and to use them as human property.
Oh, Jeff, you've stepped in it now, buddy. As a Christian, you really, really do not want to be bringing up slavery in a discussion on ethical behavior. Okay, so we've already established that no one is out here advocating that whatever a government enacts is automatically moral or even the ultimate determinant of what a society views as ethical or moral. That was a straw man that you set up about the atheist position. But you know what system of ethics and morals does establish the allowance of slave owning? That's right, Christianity. So the ethical system that is established by your religion allows heathens to be bought and sold as property, bequeathed to your children as inherited property, and owned for life. And I mean, frankly, that would also include people like you, Jeff, as the Bible only insists that Hebrew slaves were to be left free after 7 years. You aren't Hebrew, are you, Jeff? I imagine there might be some people out there who might want to enslave you to perform backflips or the Johnny Cage nut punch over and over for their own amusement. Hey, the book that you base your morality on says that they can, and it's only society's laws that says that that's wrong. And you don't want to go by what society says, but instead what your religion says, right? It's all fun and games until it doesn't go in your favor.
And that means, watch, this is powerful. If society determines what is moral, then that means any society that has a person within it fighting for transformation within society on any level, the person fighting against that society is the immoral one. Why? Because society has determined what? That we can kill Jews, that we can enslave black people, and anybody who argues with it is the immoral one. Do you see, if you say society determines what is moral, then you are stuck with society changing morality over time, and whatever evil is happening, you cannot war against it because society has determined it, which means no social transformation to any degree, really at any time.
Well, again, that being a straw man argument that no atheist makes, we can ignore it. But I'd like to again flip it back on Christianity. If your holy book and the religion predicated upon it determines what is right and wrong, and are utterly unchanging and unchangeable, then anyone who fights against what that book and church has established is wrong and immoral, and there could be no societal transformation within the religion. That would mean that anyone who broke away from the Catholic Church, the original progenitors of Christianity, would be immoral for doing so. Jeff, your ministry is, by your own admission, a Reformed Baptist church. That goes against the established orthodoxy of the Christian faith. And there are certainly many tenets laid out in the Bible that you do not adhere to unless you do engage in slave trading, warring with the unbelievers, and the occasional genocide. So how can you possibly justify that kind of social change that goes directly against the supposed word of the all-powerful and all-knowing God? Secular ethics can change with the times and with social progress. It's one of the best things about secularism. It's self-realization that it isn't set in stone and can change with the times and the collective consciousness of the people. It's religious ethics that are ridiculously slow to change and must be dragged kicking and screaming into modern concepts of right and wrong. And even when everyone else is telling them that they are wrong, many religious fundamentalists will still gleefully and unashamedly proclaim things that everyone else decries as despicable. Not that any particular example of that comes to mind or anything, Jeff.
And so the unbeliever is stuck with that. Societal convention, personal preference, and one more thing. When the unbeliever says, well, I have a basis for ethics. It's what works to keep us alive. We've determined that if you murder others, then we're not going to flourish. We've determined if you steal from others, we're not going to flourish. We've determined if you rape others, we're not going to flourish. What's the hidden assumption there, the borrowed capital from Christianity? Human value and dignity, and that society should flourish.
So, thinking that human society should flourish is a notion that is borrowed from Christianity? That's like saying, hey, Christians like to drink water when they get thirsty. So if you drink water when you get thirsty, you're borrowing it from Christianity. Thus, you're basically a Christian. No, Jeff. Christianity is not the progenitor of the idea that humans have value or that it's a good thing for human society to flourish. That would be a basic notion that comes by way of just being human. The earliest humans were certainly not Christians, having arrived somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 years before Christianity became a thing. And I guarantee you that they thought they mattered, that their lives mattered, and their fledgling society mattered. For crying out loud, Jeff, do you think all atheists are inherently nihilists who don't think anything matters at all just because we don't believe in God? That's not how it works. Not to mention all of the other non-Abrahamic faiths who also believe that their lives in society matter. What, are all faiths and philosophies just borrowing their notions of human value from Christianity? Get over yourself, Jeff. It's an inherent part of being human that we care about ourselves and our own kind. I mean, for crying out loud, bees will attack anything that threatens the hive and their fellow bees. I guess that means all bees are Christian in your eyes. Seriously, this is the dumbest thing you've said yet.
Because we must ask the unbeliever. We must ask them, are we stardust? And they say, oh, yes, we're stardust. Like Carl Sagan said, we are stardust, right? Neil deGrasse Tyson, he says, we're stardust. Well, let me ask you a question. What makes you think stardust must flourish? What if I want to kerosene the whole anthill?
For starters, everything on this planet started out as stardust. The planet itself formed from the sun's accretion disk. So all of the elements that make up our planet were expelled from the sun, which is a star, and over time it all coalesced from floating space dust into a solid mass that grew over time until it eventually had enough mass to be considered a planet. It then changed and grew over time into the planet that we inhabit today. And everything on it, all life, had to come from some basic raw materials. Well, those raw materials, like everything else on the planet, came out of the sun originally. So yes, we and everything else, from the house you live in, to the car you drive, to the mutant turtle costume you used to wear, all of it is effectively stardust. Now, that being said, I have no idea why you think that would make us, or anything else, less inherently valuable, less worthy of life or flourishing. I mean, even if you don't believe in everything being stardust, I assume you do believe that everything came from other matter, that matter cannot be created or destroyed, but only change from one form to another, right? We're on the same page there, yes? So then, when a creature is pregnant and gestating an offspring, when they eat, they are effectively taking the raw materials of the food they are consuming, and it's being turned into, effectively, that offspring, right? So does, say, a kitten have more intrinsic value than, say, a saucer of milk? That kitten started out as milk that the mother drank, along with a lot of other stuff. that was all just other kinds of food that the mother's body converted into the raw materials to make the kitten. But we understand that what a thing is made of is not the entirety of its worth. The sum is greater than the value of the parts. You don't have to be Christian to realize this.
When the unbeliever says, I think society should flourish, you should say, why should Stardust flourish? And why are you picking this Stardust over this Stardust?
Because I'm part of that first Stardust. Why do I care more about what happens to humans than ants? Because I am a human. Why do I care more about what happens on this planet than other planets? Because I live on this planet. It's really not a tough question, Jeff. I'm amazed you so struggle with it. And also you say atheists have no objective morality to fall back on. Well, you're absolutely right. But lucky for us, we do have subjective morality. Which honestly all morality is, even if there is a God imposing it. Morality is inherently subjective because all morality is a value judgment, meaning it requires a being, a subject, to do the judging. So even a God-derived morality is subjective, with God as the subject interpreting it. But since we atheists don't believe a God exists, as far as we are concerned, you Christians are doing the same thing we're doing when it comes to moral judgments. You're making them yourself based on a complex tapestry of motivations, perspectives, and ideas that make up your moral landscape, just like we do. We're just honest enough to say that it's coming from ourselves, whereas you think it's coming from a God. So overall, a lot of straw-manning the atheist position, egotistically claiming that motivations that are intrinsic to all humans are derived straight from Christianity, and a hefty helping of misunderstanding science where it comes to physical and cultural evolution. The funniest and most ironic thing is that Jeff started off insisting that atheists don't have many options where ethics and morality are concerned. But in fact, we have tons of options. We literally can choose our morality and ethical framework based on whatever criteria we like. We can choose to go with human societal flourishing based on self-interest and human centrism, or we can choose antinatalism based on environmentalism, or we could base our ethics on notions of fairness, equality, equity, technological and sociological progress, nationalism, hedonism, utilitarianism. You can have two different atheists who have two completely different moral and ethical systems of beliefs because they chose totally different motivations for their moral and ethical viewpoints. But it's theists who are totally restricted. They truly don't have many options. Just one, in fact. The moral and ethical system laid down by their religion. That is truly restrictive. And it becomes very uncomfortable for the faithful when that moral system that they've put their faith into hauls off and tells them to stone their children when they get out of line. And while you're at it, commit total genocide against those people over there by dashing their infants against a rock. And yet it's atheists who apparently have a problem when it comes to morality. Sure, Jeff. Whatever you say, pal. So that's where we'll leave things for today. Once again, a very special thanks to The Skeptic for giving me a new space to rant on for this week. And thanks for watching, everyone. I'm Professor Plink, sending it back to our favorite British floating circle and reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.
I know where I want to go. Straight to Jeff's house with a massive moral compass. They sell those at Target, right? Anyway, thanks PP for stepping in this week. You can find Professor Plink's channel in the description. Go and bestow many leaves upon him from Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe. Skeptic, that is a good moral action. A big thank you to this month's top-level ticks on Patreon. Godless Granny, Addy Rockart, The Enixes, Elizabeth, Jikari, Whiskey Tech Fred, and the Absolute Lunatic Travis, as well as all the $3 base ticks. You can become a supporter on Patreon too at patreon.com/theskeptic. The link is in the description, along with links to all all my other socials. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. From me, the Skeptic, stay safe, keep thinking logically, and ask questions. Skepticism is the first step towards truth. See you next Saturday.